Thanks. Thank you.
Tell me when you're ready.
Melanie and I are having a great conversation. We just.
Yeah,
We're
we're
meeting
fine.
another time.
Okay. I call our a special board meeting tonight at 7:15 PM tonight. Adam, will you please do the pledge?
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any public comments tonight? Oh, sorry, roll call.
Trustee Dobro. Trustee Kirby.
Here.
Trustee LaFredo. Trustee Repa.
Here.
Supervisor Bowman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Do we have any public comments tonight?
Can I reserve public comment for after,
Yes.
like the last thing?
We have public comment later on.
But yeah, I might have a comment after you get done tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
It's on
I
there.
mean, it's not on the agenda.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't read that, sorry.
Oh, not a problem.
I did read the agenda, I just missed that.
Reports, old business. Number 1. Can I have a motion to approve the March 8, 2022 regular board meetings? All in favor?
So.
I second.
No, favor.
All in favor? What? No.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? I have that here.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Okay, number 2, adopt a highway Lake County agreement. I sent that all to you last week. This is another opportunity for us to do something good in the community. We have a location on Rollins Road to be part of the Adopt a Highway. So a couple times a year at least, we're going to be cleaning the highway. It doesn't have to be you, but I would like to have a group of people when we do decide to clean the highway. It's a great way for us just to take care of Avon Township just by picking up litter. So did everybody have a chance to look at the contract? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve contract?
Motion to approve the contract.
Second? Any discussion?
Just make sure you send out an email and remind us when the cleanup is gonna be, and I'll be there.
Wonderful.
I want to also admit how long the stretch it is,
About a mile.
1 mile, depending on how many people you might want to open it up to. kinds of-
Oh, I plan on putting this message out to Avon Township to help take care of our community. And we'll have a sign, it's probably gonna say Avon Township government, because you're kind of limited in how many words we can have.
Yeah,
If you guys have a better,
you could call it Avon Township, you could call it, you know, it's up to us, I guess. Avon Township works.
plain Avon Township or anything.
That's our legal name.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to say government.
Just Avon Township. Okay. So we vote, we are good.
We've got a motion in a second. The contract, so roll call.
Roll call.
Trustee Dobro. Trustee Kirby. Trustee LaFredo. Trustee Repa.
Aye.
Supervisor Bowman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 3, now approval to amend the town hall meeting agenda for April 12th, 2022.
What do you mean?
Item number 11, a resolution authorizing the sale or disposal of certain assets. It was overlooked. Bob is planning on retiring 2 vehicles.
Thank you.
So we wanted to make sure that was on the town hall agenda so we can disposition that without having to call a second one.
I move the approved agenda, the improved, amended.
Is there a
For
second?
the town hall.
Is there any idea in the future to sell the parcel of land on Kingsville Road?
All I know is that the agenda now reads the sale or disposal of certain assets. So that is to the discretion of the electors to decide what those assets may be.
We pay the fortune for that.
650,000.
That was bad.
it's something to think about for the future.
For the future, because I thought that with the new road coming in or being adjusted in Haynesville, if they're gonna be putting like a lip or something into that property,
And that
that
would improve the,
would improve the value of it.
yeah, and
The problem is that there's no public access to that, and there's no utilities, and so that you're talking about.
it's something we should start looking into, but I don't think it's gonna be offloaded anytime soon.
Oh, you might. Quite a few years ago, we approached the highway department, a group that I was working with on early childhood about potentially using that space for a co-op, early childhood center. Because of the need in this community, and that it straddled two communities and had, with the change in the allocation, there might be an opportunity to do that because facilities is part of the goal of the increased funding for early childhood. And that's ballistic file.
I think that's something that we can start to look into maybe probably summer, end of summer. In terms of when projects free up.
What it would take to develop.
Maybe in the beginning of summer.
It depends on what's on our plate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When time comes available, and freedom.
Certainly something to speak with the highway supervisor about, to find out what the costs for that egress might be as they're doing the Haynesville Road project. So we don't have to go back and retroactively do it. There might be a cost savings involved. in
that was the reason when Bob and I talked originally about the property and the advantages of having the highway, having us wait until the whole Haynesville project is done, but then that'd be a few years later on, but definitely keep it on the agenda and see, if you can get the right offer. Property is hot right now. You never know.
All right.
Okay.
Never know. Right person. Okay.
There might be easements. I know when I looked at that years ago, there were cross easements on that property and the property was the roller rink.
Yeah, at the
And I
back,
don't
at the
know-
back.
I don't remember exactly all the details and how, whether it's, it still exists. There might be easement language that talks about ingress and egress through what's now the siding into that, that property. So it might be something to take a look at.
Yeah, according
We could
to,
look into it too, if it's something that electors decide they want to.
with that property, they never had any access to it. It was always, when we did use it, it used to be a park.
Yeah,
At one
right.
point, we always used the parking lot of the roller rink to get access into the building.
Right.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
It's
But it is something, I agree, it is something that we need to have the highway department look at and see exactly what the potential.
We'll definitely have that on the agenda this summer. Let's keep moving. Is that okay?
You have a
Yes. What are we voting on?
adopted the agenda. I have a motion and a second. I have a motion by trustee Kirby, second by Rockwell.
The town hall.
Keep it into it.
No, it's a call for this.
No, I just need an aye, it would be fine.
Okay, so
Oh, we said aye. I'm lost in it. Okay, aye.
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 All in favor, ayes.
Oh, I thought you were waiting for like me to say aye. Okay, we ready?
Okay.
Motion carries. Moving on.
Yeah, no more discussion, Dave. Now,
It's
really,
Monday.
no, number 4, the 2022, 2023 budget. I'm gonna have Crystal put it up on the screen so we can all look at it really well.
Crystal, a second to load the right copy to make sure everything's right.
And if you can't see, feel free to move closer to the screen.
There are also printed copies were available up here. I have an extra one here.
So we were working on this budget up until about 4 o'clock today.
Is that the whole
You
thing?
highlighted
Yeah.
those that were changed, Crystal?
Jeez.
For the most part, I might have missed one or two of them, but tried to make best efforts. Okay, there we go. Should be almost readable for most people,
Very
and you can follow along on the paper copies as well. So a couple of the quick highlights. I'm gonna go over highlights only. I'm not gonna go through every line item. Town fund, we increased the property tax to the amount that we levied instead of an arbitrary reduction of 5%. So we've traditionally done it, so that's how we're doing it here. As we scroll down a little bit further, we'll see that for salaries, we've done some fund shifting, burden balancing, basically. And what we're saying is that we're going to shift a portion of the part-time burden that was the bookkeeper onto the highway department, as the bookkeeper is responsible for doing both town and highway accounting. And we're going to take one of our office staff within the town and put part of their salary on the town side. For reasons of mathematical complexities within our software, FICA and IMRF will all come out of a single fund as opposed to being split, but we are splitting the salary lines. There's apparently real complications splitting benefits and things like that. It's just not worth it. We cut legal down to $12,000 from the original ask of $54,000. We put the majority of that cut into contingencies in case we need it, but the intent is not to spend it. Aside from that, there were some smaller cuts here and there, little bits and pieces. We did bring down the building fund to $30,000, which was in line with the finance committee's findings from a year ago. Overall, it represents a 7% reduction from the initial ask, which is pretty significant change. And then we've got adjusting for the capital and contingencies that we've been talking about. As long as we aren't spending that money on things like a roof replacement this year, we end up with a budget of minus $205 net. So big improvement over where it started, which was minus 141. So significant work's been done. From the assessor side, we are asking to go back to the original requested number of 193,500. The only other changes were mathematics related to FICA and IMRF. We've talked about some of those in the past. Other than that, computers and everything else are fully funded in here. That represents a tiny little change, but it's still, you know, every little change is impactful. Minus 0.4%. Okay, on the GA side, one of the more portions of that burden shifting as far as salaries, you see that impact right here. See that FICA and IMRF are, you know, in line with that, with those numbers. Benefits haven't changed, but that's, you know, one significant portion of savings. There have been smaller cuts, a big increase to contingencies just in case, because if we end up with a GA client, we want to make sure we can afford to pay for that. But otherwise, that's money that isn't meant to be spent either. That mailing list process came down from 10,000 to 5,000. That one is not highlighted on your sheets for what it's worth.
It's mailing slash anything.
Mailing slash print slash newsletter budget, whatever that was going to end up being,
Right, Facebook.
was cut down from 10 to 5. There was some shifting of the burden on utilities to the GA side. Another $5,000 reduction, a couple of small bits and pieces here and there. Aside from that, significant cuts, and I'm sorry, these weren't highlighted either, because we're getting through these at the end of the day, to client utilities and shelter, based more on the actuals from last year, and crossing our fingers and hoping that that doesn't increase significantly this year.
So the one problem we have this year is the resources that the government did to help our residents. A lot of those programs are ending. So we did not have the burden that we've had in the past. So our concern is these clients are going to come back. The need is going to be even more now. But this is we're trying to stay on budget. So
again, the reason for the big increase in contingencies is in case that does happen, is to prepare for that eventuality and hope for the best. But that represents a 24%, almost 24% reduction from the original starting point. Significant differences again. After taking out the contingencies, we're looking at a $2,800 net loss. Again, pretty close to zero. Continuing over to the road and bridge side. Did a couple of small changes and increased the miscellaneous income to project for the sale of the vehicles that are going to be going out the door. We don't know what that market looks like. This was the best guess we had from Bob at this point, who's being very conservative. So it does show a little bit of an uptick in revenue. We had a couple of small reductions like maintenance equipment. Most of the rest of this is in line with what the expectations and original budgets were. There's 110,000 for vehicles is still there. Overall, it's a 2% reduction from where he started. And we're expecting with the capital contingencies being adjusted out for a loss of 118,400, with 110,000 of that being allocated to a one-time asset purchase. So a net loss on regular operations of $8,400. One last one to go. Permanent hard road. See right here, another one that wasn't highlighted. This is where we see the burden shift of part of that labor going over to the highway department for the part-time bookkeeping services. So a small increase of 23,000 there. The rest of the numbers, with the exception of, I think Bob had one suggested change in here, but I don't recall where it is. Resulted in a 2.4% increase and an expected loss of 79,000, but also on the heels of a positive $200,000 amount from last year from money that wasn't spent on road project. This year, there's an expectation to spend down on work off of Fairfield Road. Rudy, is that correct?
Yes.
So there's road projects that are planned. They didn't all get done last year, but they will get done this year. So the spend down is going to happen this time. That's pretty normal for this budget with the capital projects. That's where we're at.
So,
I would also just add, as the years go on, when we talk about, Nippersink Road and the work that needs to be done on that, that's gonna be a process where over the next couple of years, we'll be putting money towards those projects and saving up for them. But if we get these trucks purchased out of the way now and the other roads done now, that means we can actually focus on that road project in the future without having to worry about the smaller road projects taking away those funds. So I think we're in a good position there long term.
thank you again for working with Bob. I think having you as a trustee, you were able to bring back a lot of information to the board and represent the board. So thank you.
I think if we get these grants and as long as we keep working towards that, we'll be in a good place.
And then Bob applying for all the grants.
Applying for SCP funds and everything, and starting on the way right now.
Okay. Do we have any questions from?
I have a question. Can you tell me what are the total liquid assets for the township in terms of like bank accounts, savings, CDs?
I can give you rough-ish numbers, only because I haven't audited these, and this is the last number that we had. On the town side, 509, 569 liquid cash. That's between short-term investments, money markets, things like that, where we can liquidate it. I don't know if that includes CDs or what we have left in CDs. Adam might know or remember better if stuff's moved out of
I thought
that.
we got out of CDs.
I don't think we moved out of the state bank of the lakes.
Okay.
So I think they may have just be sitting in a money market or whatever.
But not
I
really.
recall it there being about 100,000 there.
Yeah.
And say 75,000 at First Midwest. I think there was another 75,000. So I'll say 250 total in cash reserves.
See if I've got, this is the last unaudited report, so you see if this is gonna have balances in it somewhere.
And does that include all of the former assets that were in the highway department that are now the township due to the dissolution pursuant to statute?
Bear with me, let me get one piece of information at a time, Chris.
And I don't know if I told you, when I went to my training this past week, I asked Township of Illinois if they were gonna have a special class or a special understanding of how only 2 towns in the state of Illinois have this new law. And it's very confusing because there is no set guidance. We're taking in the highway, but there is no rules and regulations necessarily set for what we're doing. And so that makes it a lot more complicated how to do things, you know, how assets get moved into the township.
I mean, by statute, it says they automatically transfer to the town. That's what how the statute reads.
Right, but it's still confusing because there's no guidance of the past. So we're kind of leading the way if other townships combine their highway department into towns.
So to answer the first part of the question, because that I can give you a firm answer to,
Okay.
we have only money market or investment accounts at this point, which means all of that cash is generally liquid. The fund balances look like this. We have 452,000 in general funds. We have 133,000 restricted to general assistance, 291,727 restricted to road and bridge, and 847,479 restricted to permanent hard road. And those distinctions are very important because the funds and the assets that were purchased with those funds remain restricted in their use. The town has full control over everything and the town technically owns everything, but those assets still belong to the funds they were originally with, and those levies are still restricted funds. So we can still transfer money unilaterally out of the town fund into any other sub-fund. We can't bring money from those sub-funds back to the town fund. So there's some pieces involved with that. I'm sure there's some financial loopholes that nobody knows about yet, that somebody will figure out as we go through this process. But without consulting lawyers beyond that, and even that's the best advice we've got at this point is if it belonged to the fund, it stays with the fund. I don't know that we want to challenge that and rock the boat quite yet.
Can you scroll back to the left? Okay.
While he's looking at that, restricted funds are those funds that have been earmarked or designated for certain.
So when we levy money, the town fund is a general operating fund. It can be used for any purpose and any expenditure in the township. The GA fund, that portion of the levy is restricted solely to GA EA use.
I'm speaking more specifically about the designated funds, restricted funds within the road and bridge.
So, yeah, road and bridge, the levy is for the spending on specific purposes, and that includes building assets. There's some other purposes that it can be used for. Bob could go through this 1,000 times better than I can. But I know that all of your building and vehicle costs have to go through that one. There's some other parts to that as well. And then the permanent hard road can be used for salaries and used for general operating for the roads. But it's also dedicated to road-based projects. So you couldn't just like throw salary and say, well, we're gonna cover the clerk's office and hire somebody out to the clerk's office out of the road and bridge fund if the clerk's not doing work for road and bridge. Right, so that's why we can go, our bookkeeper does work across both funds, so we can sort of shift some of that burden. There's a long history of that with, prior accountants or bookkeepers or office staff. But what we're talking about, some of the other stuff, it's restricted in terms of what it can be used for.
Let me ask this question. For the liability insurance of the township, that's, does that cover any portion of the highway, or that's strictly related only to?
Why, just curiosity, why are you asking that question? I'm just trying to.
Well, because I would think then you could be able to allocate a portion of the charge for the liability if it covers the highway side.
They have their own separate line item for liability and general insurance. It's 19,900. I can share that on the screen, or you can see that on your paperwork there. It's in the road and bridge fund.
So they're already paid.
So they're paying for part of that.
And I'm assuming that liability is probably estimated and, equated out basically because they have more risks in their work, I would assume.
They're like,
Their liability is probably higher.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, I don't know. All I can tell you is that the total cost was 17,660 last year. It's budgeted for 19,900 with what we expect from the policy renewals.
Those are kind of set when Anne Marie and I met with them.
Because their line of work is a lot more dangerous.
The tools, the trucks.
I believe there is a $10,000 shift or no, they've got, their workers' comp is also paid by them for their portion of workers' comp. Whereas we've got the office and the town, the assessor's side, he's got the highway side. So we've already portioned that out.
Make it simple as, because I go out and I do my job in my car, I'm at a different level than somebody who stays in their office the whole time. Because the risk is greater that I could have a car accident or something could happen to me.
That's what.
That's,
I did it for you.
thank you. What other questions does everybody have?
I suppose we can get electric vehicles.
Kidding.
Well played, Mr. Hayden.
I think it'll be interesting to see how this year shapes out in terms of if inflation continues to rise, if we'll be a little bit, short on funds, or if, evaluations on property taxes and whatnot increase and get, more than what is projected in property tax or replacement tax or anything. I'm interested to see what happens as the year goes on, but in terms of right now with this, I like what I'm seeing in terms of at least it's balanced. Well, assuming we don't have a roof leak, or contingency. So,
As I said last time, I wanted to go into this year balanced. I think that's something that we want to strive for, to be in budget as a township and not, over.
I think we've been closer. I think that we should phase in, the upgrades to computers. Instead of doing it one year, we should phase it in. Do some of it this year, some of it next year. I think that's the best way to go.
in terms of like into the future or like for this budget?
For this budget, I think we cut down that and phase it in. So we'll spend a portion of it this year. And I think we can adjust the budget for that, which could just bring us better to our goal. And then understanding that we'll have to do more next year, which is the way we've done things in the past.
Yeah,
So I think we can-
I'm sorry.
What?
I spoke before you stopped talking.
That's all right.
So under the GA fund, the grants awarded, have there been commitments in any of these four? I know there was a grant given to Safe Place.
The only grant that I'm planning on giving right now is for keeping families covered, because they need care and they've asked for $1,000 donation, and we get thousands of dollars back in return in diapers. So that is the only one that I see us, needing to give a social service grant to, and I think that's a good one. We're not doing grants like we did last time with town. We're just gonna stick with organizations that we work with, but I cut that down quite a bit. I mean, my goal really is just keeping families covered unless something else comes up or another agency that works with us on a regular basis.
Yeah, I guess where I was going with it is that there may be some adjustments. Is there some fluidity between the grants and, assisting in the utilities, because there was such a significant cut?
No, they're separate. Because people come in needing help and support for utilities, where the mobile diaper service is something that we do to help not only Avon Township residents, but any residents in our area. And in return, we get diapers for all the residents that are a part of our diaper program. So that's, like it's totally two different, items.
Okay.
So people come to us right when their power gets shut off, basically, they have the last notice and it's shut off, and then we work with Catholic Charities, we work with the villages, we work with different organizations, depending on how high their bill is. I have a maximum that I'm allowed to, it's $750 for emergency assistance. I could change it at any time, I could go down to 200, I could go to 500 or more. So depending on how the year is going, I will be able to adjust it up or down, because again, there may be more need. It's just that $300 is probably not gonna get somebody's power back on. That's 3 months, behind. So
Which of course is the primary responsibility. of the township.
it's to help people in need. That is my goal every day when somebody comes into the office, how we can help them.
So the fact that you cut the town side of the budget by 24% is admirable that you work so hard with your staff to do that, but also should hit us all as a burden to the community. This is a burden to the community when you make these kinds of cuts, because that means somebody's not gonna be able to get the help,
I know,
or somebody's not gonna be able to get assistance for whatever it is,
I know.
and that's the really sad part. of it.
And I understand that's a sad part, but we ran on being fiscally responsible. I understand what you're saying, and I wish, it is a shame, and it is.
But so I guess to be blunt with my question, you couldn't zero out the grants and move that over into the utilities.
The grants have a fundamentally different responsibility. The grants are for organizations, traditionally, it's organizations that serve the community, that can tap into our GA funds, that wouldn't have access to that kind of money, and be able to extend their programs. So for instance, we've given grants to Mano a Mano, we've given grants to other agencies that are doing the work of GA. It has to do the work of GA,
I see.
but it gives them another opportunity to raise their ability.
Subcontracting some of the community needs to.
But it goes back and forth, like Mano a Mano is in our office every Friday.
Yeah.
So what they're able to do is help our residents.
And so they're important for building relationships, but they're also important to getting the community to understand what the services are, to being able to have a voice in other agencies. So they say, oh, have you checked with the township? So it is a necessary combination. And again, this I think is the sad part of cutting down the grants, which we have done over time. We have cut those down. I mean, at one point we gave, we had a Boy Scout troop that got all of their camping gear stolen. And, so it was a hardship, it was kids, so we gave them some grants for it. So it's, and when you take that away, then you're limiting the ability to help us.
So Adam, just so you can see it up on the screen. Social service contracts came out of this miscellaneous services area. And it probably shouldn't say grants awarded, it should say social service.
Yeah, that's what
Agreements or
I
whatever.
originally said.
But there's no money on the town side for any of that this year.
I took that all out.
That's where the social service contracts, like a safe place or what have you, would come from. These are different obligations that the township has and we meet, that are based on not social service agreements and contracts like that, but programs that we run out of the township. So completely two separate.
So that's the supervisor's budget. So this is something that my employees, we got to stay within our budget, and we never know when a senior or somebody's going to come in. And like for some programs, I did want to increase because the more events that I have here, we're going to be able to get more people who need the service. So that's where that was the one area I wasn't about to budge on, because if I have an Easter egg event and there's 15 agencies, we're going to be able to help a lot more. It may not cost us as much because we're going to connect with the other agencies. But I did, get rid of my, or our social service.
Yeah, the special pandemic money is gonna cost, I agree with Michelle. I don't think we can predict what the burden will be to the townships, not just our township, to every township.
Yeah.
Because that money is running out. And there's certainly, we realize that that people are still suffering the consequences of it.
So for the social service contract for the zebra mussels, what did that fall into?
That
this
wasn't,
last
that was
year?
in the town. That
That
was
was
in
in
the town.
town, yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Would it fall into any categories this year?
No, no.
if they-
No,
okay.
no.
Yeah.
No, GA is for the services that we work with, that Candy and I personally work with. We, on a,
So there's gonna be no social service awards this year
No.
in terms of that kind of.
no,
Okay.
get rid of that.
It also eliminated all the scholarships.
That was before me.
That was-
Yeah.
Is the township able to fundraise at all to kind of meet some of these shortfalls and
I heard we can, we just have to figure out what kind of fundraise.
I mean, one of the things in terms of the, scholarships and stuff, I got a scholarship a while back in high school through the Round Lake Chamber of Commerce for college. And the problem with that is that the Round Lake Chamber of Commerce dissolved and it went to, I think Lake Villa and then
Mhm.
that.
And they're not doing it.
Yeah, so it's a problem, but I don't think it's a problem that we can necessarily fill because of certain, I know we've talked about this in the past.
I know we can fundraise. Mr. Jean and I were talking a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, last week. I don't know if Glenn's
It
together,
kind
but
of means nothing.
But it's just, there's rules and regulations and donations, and we would have to have a good system in place before I would even think about having any kind of fundraiser that involves cash.
Yeah, and the grants, the scholarships that the township gave up was a partnership with the
Yes.
Chamber of Commerce because.
Because it
they
was them
matched-
doing it.
No, they matched our funds. So
Okay.
if we gave them 50, they would give 50, now you have 100. It
Yeah.
was more, but still, it was a nice relationship that we got. That chamber.
What I could look into, see what other townships do for fundraisers. I think some have like dinners or some do events. But I don't see that happening in the next 6 months, 9 months. That takes a lot of planning, and we have other events that are just to serve the community. So we'll be in the same predicament next year. Unless somebody wants to give me
But
money.
the bright side is, we have funded the township though.
What?
We have funded the township with what's here. That's something. I think, overall, it's not the budget I love, but it's the budget that I think we can do. So
I'd
that's,
like to see us raise in electronic stuff. So I
Crystal,
would look at that.
with the pricing, how many computers are you looking at right now?
So I'm gonna put on my technology hat for just a second and say that on the town side, we could absolutely phase that in. There is one machine in the township side that desperately is in need of replacement just because it's a Windows home machine, not a business level machine, and doesn't have the right software licensing. That machine should be replaced or funneled into the side office for public access. That would be one we could do at the town side and not do any others at the town side. From the assessor side, that's some old stuff, but we could look at hybrid replacement to lower that cost instead of going to purely laptops, do a combination of laptops and desktops that we meet their needs.
Okay, you.
But there's stuff that's
to
kind of your
Go out and get other quotes.
Yeah, there's nothing, yeah, I've got a second round coming in.
Okay, well, just curiosity, I mean. one area, see what works us.
We needed one just to have an idea as to what it was gonna cost.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
there's another round coming in now.
okay. Great, great save, that's all I'm looking for.
What are you guys good with your budget?
We're not gonna vote on it.
No, we're not voting on it until our next board meeting. So if we have any additional questions or anything, we
And
can
give us the figures from.
The computers?
Yeah, I'll get you the best figures I can.
Okay, I understand. Appreciate it.
Are there any other questions on the budget? Okay,
No question on the budget, I'm disappointed at how much we've had to reduce the town side of the budget, only because that is fundamentally our responsibility. Just. Not something that I.
how's that for Girl? Not. We're gonna move on to executive session. We have no executive session tonight. Public comments.
Yes, I have a comment. So I know this has been really, really hard. And I know, like, I am as nauseated by some of this as maybe some people here are. You know, like, it's hard, this is hard to do. But you made a promise and you're working really hard to keep your promise. And I really wish we could do more. I will do everything in my possibility to do it, but I'm very proud of us for doing what's hard instead of just kicking the can down the road like it's been done.
Actually, Michael did call me today, and Michael said the same words. Michael said to me, we can't kick the can, because that's kind of how I felt when we left our meeting last time. Kicking the can to me really, really scared me, because then we are never able to stay in budget. We're always going to be behind, and we're never going to catch up. For somebody who, in the past, you know, credit cards and things like that, it's so easy just to pay things. But the bill comes, and if you don't pay it that month, it adds on. And I'm very proud of this board, because everything that we ran on, I'm gonna keep saying that, everything we ran on, we have to make sure that we do. And then somebody can say, you know, you guys did this. No, because we believe in what we're doing. So thank you, Rudy. Jeff has to see the budget, and so does Michael, but I think getting that phone call from Michael today meant a lot, that he knows how we have to be fiscally responsible, so.
I just wish we could have done more, even crossed off of all of them, which is the reduction.
I know.
I mean, it's emotional because everybody here cares and everybody wants to do the right thing. And that's what makes it hard. If it weren't hard, none of us would be emotional about it. But doing it is better than not doing it, in my opinion. And then we can work from here. Budgets are an expression of our values. So if we want more of our values, then we can work really, really hard. Now we're in balance. We can work hard to see what comes up to grow more of what is valuable.
Because our budget's gonna go out to publicly. So anybody who wants to see where our budget is, they're gonna be able to look at it. And I think we need to be able to say, here you go, this is our budget. Because once we pass it, then it's that 30 days. And then we have our new budget. And our budget will not be retroactive.
Might I also say, I took
I mean,
this,
it's not gonna be like,
I took this course on advocating. I learned, I took this course on advocating, this past fall. Who said that, whining alone doesn't get you anything, but whining with a purpose does. So the things that we dislike that were cut, maybe perhaps when we get questions, we should say like, yeah, I wish we could give more to, but we don't have the money. And then that way we are priming the pump, should we, things that need to change. Like for a fundraiser, yes, we would like to do more of this. We haven't had the money, that's why we need this fundraiser. Or should the trustees choose to go some other direction, like a referendum or something? You have to, I'm not gonna make that decision for you, I know that, but.
No, thank you. I mean, people question, you know, why we have a finance committee. And this is the reason why we have a finance committee made up of board members and community members. When people keep asking me, because it is important for the community to have a say, so for you guys to look over us, but also support us. And so when you go back to your friends or the library board or wherever you're going to go to, you're going to say, hey, you know, I'm on the finance committee. If it comes up, I'm not sure who really cares, but it's. I'll
When
be
it comes
honest.
to me, nobody
But
cares.
the thing is, it is important for you to represent, same as Adam, to represent Avon Township. And if there is a problem, you guys have to say something too. This is first, but you know, thank you. That's all I can
We
say.
need to change our revenue stream. Change our revenue stream.
Okay, any other public comments?
I would like to reserve my comment once when we have full board meeting on this. I'm not going to make any public comments on it right now.
Okay.
Just reserve my comments as chair of the finance committee before you vote.
Okay, I do have one, we do have to get that, for the new finance committee, we do have to get that application out. Because I'm gonna start promoting it, going around, making sure that everybody knows about it. We go into different meetings, talking about it. Adam invited me to a meeting to speak. If anybody else wants me to speak about the finance committee, let me know, because we want to have strong candidates on our committee. Two. Anything else? Motion to adjourn the meeting.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you guys. What time it is? Not even 8 o'clock.
Finance committee members don't meet quite yet. I have questions for you, but I can't talk to you all at once.
I remember early on.
You're talking to me?
Yes.
Okay.
We produce a similar document that we did last year that goes through the entire budget fund by fund.
Yes.
Okay. I don't need
I
to
know it
repeat
has
that.
been.
You're telling me. Okay.
And I know two last year's things. Budget document we put together, it's like 70 pages. Last year's finance budget document. How do you we put together a comprehensive report for every fund and where the priorities were, all the documents.
Well, I don't have.
On the finance committee level, I put that report together last year, so rather than have you guys start over, I can use some of that and recycle it.
Sure.
Or at least parts of it, and be able to issue that to the committee.
Okay.
Cool.
But people still want, people want to help with that.
Well, that's right, like, our government agency fundraising, so it's like, you would, with some of the relationships you're building with other organizations, they would like to.
Yeah.
Or another company, this one, and fundraise.
A variable line is.
A vote, no, vote. Do they appreciate? Okay, so for the exchange club, there has, a vote.
Okay, so if we wait until the April meeting,
A vote?
yeah.
I like a-
Once it goes out for review,
No, vote.
it's a 30-day public review, but it's still able to be adjusted during that 30-day
That
period.
sounds.
Approval doesn't need to be done till May
I
31st.
mean, I love to hear ideas. But can we do?
The end of May something, May 12th, May somewhere in there.
Right, we do the regular board meetings and there's a 30-day window between them under the normal schedule, so it's fine.
Right.
The timing is fine, we don't need to call the extra meeting.
You know who would know?
I know, but we don't need to by law. I think under the statutes, we're good.
Because they.
I've heard Michael open up all the special meetings, but
Did it fundraise?
I don't.
I'm just thinking, also.
If we have a timing issue,
Yeah,
Right. People get sick. I don't know how, why, whatever. And now all of a sudden, in May, and all of a sudden you don't have a quorum.
Maybe, yeah.
It's just.
well, under those circumstances, we can actually call it the order reset for a separate day, and you don't have to call it another special meeting. We can do it.
If we need to, I'm good for it, but if we don't need to, if we say it's fine, then okay.
If you don't need to, if we absolutely run into the worst case scenario, it's a 48-hour process. It's not like it's the end of
The
it.
schools been fundraising all the time.
But it has to be.
I just don't think of a government agency, people.
But schools are government.
Public work time. So they have.
But yeah, but they only fundraise.
Oh, I mean, I would
They
think
just
it's
like it has to because. once you're right, it's like- you have a
That money
paper
coming in
produce it.
isn't
You have
from
to
a levy.
say all proceeds will go
So-
to X, Y, Z.
Right.
That money, you technically, I mean, obviously, I don't know if the contract, I don't know how much profit.
Oh, see, the way those contracts are structured, no, that money goes to replenish the costs from the levies that would ordinarily be charged to salaries and things like that. It's literally a pass-through reimbursement of cost. It's not actually revenue. It's a little
Because you're
weird the way,
spending it from the original fund.
it's really stupid the way this stuff works. Do you know how many times okay, do you know how many ways I tore this apart 8 years ago? Trying to get answers to this stuff. That's why it's like, I know this crap and I wanted to. Believe me, I wanted to. It's, we lease out part of the building, that's general funds. The highway department contracts their equipment and their people and their materials to do a job. That money's stuck with them.
It's not now, but.
If they used our equipment for it, that would be different, but that's a different issue.
I think it's, I mean,
And there's a different ball of wax is, I guess in theory, the town could buy new highway vehicles instead of the road and bridge fund.
Right.
Then the town owns them, not the highway,
right.
but we still have to take the hit somewhere. We can't take the money from road and bridge back into town to buy them. So what's the point?
Yeah.
And it became.
Irish done that.
Well, no.
I know, it's like I said, the statute, you know,
Now, I think there's a way
it's interesting on its face, and like I said.
the statute on its face says a lot, but
Say,
Yeah.
assets,
And so.
so
they
the
shut
assets,
down.
property, equipment. That was it, that was. That was perfect.
People.
It's automatically vested in the town. So I understand what you said.
Yeah, money, yeah, all these.
If I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, you got a CD,
I mean, my high,
you know.
my high school teacher.
Now that was in the highway.
Yeah.
it's under the town's control, but it's still funding for that purpose. It's,
That begs the question, if it's in the town name, does it then over to the, meaning the town, saying that's what I'm saying.
if a municipality levies money for a particular purpose, it can only be used for that purpose and no other. And Rudy will agree with me on that. If you have a levy that's set up for your insurance and retirement benefits, you can't spend that money on anything else.
We have an economic development fund for the village of Franklin Park, and that money can only be spent for buying property, improving a township. You can't use it for salary. I'd love to put that $500,000 we have to buy salary, but sadly, we can't.
Right, now, here's where things get interesting. Like I said, there might be some loopholes.
Show me the money.
Well, thank you guys for coming tonight.
Potentially get the electors to sell property from one entity to the
We're
other
not gonna have that many meetings.
for less than market value. But the electors have to allow that, and the electors may object to it, because unfortunately, it has to go through the electors, but if the electors say, the road and bridge fund is gonna sell these two trucks, and the town goes, well, we're gonna buy them for a dollar.
Michael said if you want to do lunch with me.
Yes.
That doesn't fall into fair bidding, unfortunately, so you have to take best bid on something like that. But
Okay.
you get where this is going, right? If somebody came in at the best responsible bidder.
I get it in general, but I don't see how it helps us in terms of, because the funds are still levied at,
Right, so if you take an asset and you transfer it from one fund to another
yeah.
at a lower than market value, then when you get rid of that asset, if the market value or higher, there's a transfer of revenue.
That and that money, they're exactly the same, so.
It's kind of a goofy little loophole trick. It's really dirty, and I don't know how well that would hold up in court. I'd be afraid of that.
did.
I wouldn't want to
Yeah,
do
if
it like
it's
that.
But- Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
retired from Florida.
Like, I'd rather, because you're just gonna have all
Oh,
This recording.
You're finishing this up.
Yeah, I felt.
Please, one Saturday.